Hey everybody, I am Katie Room from Periapsis Press, and welcome to The Signal, where I just talk about stuff mostly related to indies, sci-fi, and fantasy specifically. Today I'm going to be complaining about some mainstream media stuff that I came in contact with and was disappointed by, predictably. And both of them have... One is definitely magic school, and one has elements of magic school. So I'm going to be talking about sort of where those fail for me and some indie alternatives. As always, I am going to start with some news, indie news. Just a reminder that I have up on the website the plans for several of the authors for this year and some of the concrete things that they are planning to put out. So if you're interested in knowing what people are doing or planning to be doing, you can check that out. I think I put the link in the description. And then the other one, which is pretty timely, is this is a story bundle that is magic school genre specific. If you're not familiar with story bundle, you pay what you think the stories are worth, and then if you hit a certain amount, then they add extras. So I think there's 4 to begin with, and then if you hit, I think it's $20, they add 6 more to make it 10. It's a pretty cool way to support some authors, and 3 of them are by authors that we've reviewed. So The Unexpected Enlightenment of Rachel Griffin by Lamplighter, and the I think it's Dragon Hole by Morgan Newquist, and then Arlo Point has a short story in Fantastic Schools. So it's definitely got some good stuff in it, I can assume. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right in to my complaints. I'm going to start with Wednesday. Watched this a while ago and was actually pretty pleased with the story in a not Addams Family context, if that makes sense. I think that the adaptation of the Addams Family is predictably poor. Kind of goes in the same direction that the Addams Family IP has been going for a long time, which is away from the original, where the Addams Family are the models for us. They are odd to the people around them, but they don't view themselves as odd. They view everyone else as odd, the normal people. So in the original Addams Family, the Addams Family are not the outcasts. They are not the people who are ostracized. They are the vehicle by which the audience is instructed on how to treat people who are different than us. They are not the people who are different from us in this reader surrogate type of methodology, right? They are the main characters. They're the viewpoint characters. It is the normal people who come in contact with them and who treat them poorly out of fear or anger or whatever the plot of the episode demands. They are treating these outsiders who come into their home with respect and dignity and charity. And that's how we're supposed to view it as the audience. And pretty much every adaptation since then have flipped that, where the the outsiders are the Addams family, and because the normal people treat them badly, they are justified in feeling resentment and enacting vengeance. In the case of Wednesday, who that's kind of been her character from Addams Family Values, I think, or the Addams Family adaptation, the first one of that round of adaptation. So that has sort of progressively gotten more intense, and that kind of culminates in this one where Wednesday is quite violent. So as an Addams Family adaptation, it's, I think, pretty predictable in that it doesn't reflect the original. And I should say the original television show. I'm not sure if there was a book or not, but I think everybody knows the original TV show. This one is a comedy horror, but she attends a school that is paranormal, shall we say. There's, I think, let's see, vampires, werewolves, and gorgons, and then others. And Wednesday falls in that sort of others series, others category. So it's got some of that going to a boarding school type tropes. And that's why I've decided to include that. That's why I've decided to include this show in part of this discussion. The other one that I want to talk about is the Golden Enclaves. This one has a similarly dark main character. She's not like macabre like Wednesday is, but she has a dark sorcerer sort of like destiny. This is the third book in the series, and I read the other two last Christmas, and I put this one on my Christmas list for this year, so I had to wait till after Christmas to buy it for myself. And I'm really glad that I bought it for myself, because it was so disappointing. I would hate for it to have been a gift. This one is Naomi Novik is one of my few remaining traditionally published authors that I continue to follow. I've really enjoyed her Temeraire series, which is a alternate history with dragons in the Napoleonic Wars. So that was a lot of fun. And I've generally enjoyed the other stuff that she's put out. So when I got to the third book in this series, and it was so unexpectedly not good, it made me angry. I really wanted to talk about it. So that's why this one is included. This one is the one that I wanted to do this stream about. And for anybody who like wanders in and is like not part of my normal audience or whatever, I really like Naomi Novik generally, but I have been pretty immersed in indie authors, and it's a bit of a different culture, and so my expectations have been a little bit altered, I guess, by that. I'm going to talk about magic school genre in like three elements that are not magic or school, because I feel like those are kind of basic. I'm going to say wish fulfillment, and that kind of includes the magic element, as well as like standing up to bullies, which is a trope in pretty much all school genre subgenres. The other two are wonder and adventure. And wonder is often accomplished through setting. we see that a lot in the Harry Potter series, where you get these nice descriptions with paired words that kind of rhyme or have alliteration. And you have sort of this, golden hue to everything, where it has a kind of specialness to it. And then the other element is the element of discovery, exploration. And then adventure, part of the magic school element is learning some magic and then applying it in some sort of practical, adventurous situation where the characters need to act heroically. And then, of course, they have like elements of courage and friendship. So looking at Wednesday first, sort of the wish fulfillment out of Wednesday is not so much magical, because everybody has sort of basic genetic traits. You are a werewolf, or you are a vampire or a gorgon, or you are like Wednesday. So the wish fulfillment doesn't come through magic so much, and the situation with Wednesday, excuse me, the wish fulfillment that she fulfills is excuse me, I'm so sorry. Man, excuse me. Is that you can be rude and vindictive and still accomplish whatever you want. You can still win the boating race. You can still gain a whole bunch of friends who inexplicably follow you and care about you, even though you are rude and kind of a downer, and a little bit violent. I just don't appreciate that kind of wish fulfillment. It's not one of my wishes. There's always a sense of like release, I guess, to just like lash out at somebody who's wronged you. I just don't see a lot of value in a whole story, a whole show, a whole character based on that concept. The wonder aspect, I feel like was really dumbed down for this particular show. The Addams Family has always been very imaginative. There's like Thing, and then there's the cousins that are conjoined twins, and oddities that don't fit into boxes like werewolves, vampires, gorgons. So to go to a school and have it be for weird people, and then have these groups, felt very just bland. So there was, and then of course the whole show is just really, really boring colors. I didn't see some of that creativity that the first adaptation of the Addams Family had, where there were colorful scenes to sort of contrast Wednesday being so dark. Even her roommate, who's a very colorful person, is being seen through that veneer, just because all of the colors are washed out in this sort of I don't know how to talk about colors, I guess. everything's dark is basically what I'm saying. And then the adventure was probably the strongest aspect of the show. There's a lot of there's the monster horror, which I think was excellent. And then there's the typical, okay, what adults do we trust? Who can we convince to help us? I thought that was well done. I liked how Wednesday worked with the local sheriff for part of it. I thought that was fun. Although I never really understood like how the world was supposed to work. Like, does everybody know about werewolves, vampires, gorgons, or just this like local town to the school? It was a little confusing for me. Hi, Patrick. I agree that the movies did a really nice job being faithful to Gomez and Morticia's relationship. They were, I think, much more faithfully adapted as characters. Whereas in this one, they felt very much pasted over something else. I almost feel like this show is taking two different stories, and if I could just remember what the other one is, right, then I would have a whole different way of thinking about this. But like because of the cliques in the school, and because of the word that like the wording, like the outcasts and stuff like that, I just feel like it's a completely different story that they were like, well, let's make it Wednesday Addams, who's the main character, as opposed to someone else. So strong on adventure. The wish fulfillment I was not impressed with, because especially as the season went on, I got really tired of Wednesday's like quippy, I'm a dark girl, like one-liners and comebacks. And it's like, who talks like that? And if someone talked like that to you, you wouldn't just shiver and be like, oh, I'm so impressed, right? Like, you'd be like, you're a weirdo. The Golden Enclaves. The wish fulfillment in this in the series is great. Really good magic system, was really impressive. And the school, the setting is really inspiring. Very cool. This book in particular, the themes are much less fun. And the first one, I think, has to do with Patrick says it felt like Descendants, Wednesday. That could be the one that I'm thinking of. Part of the story is that they've graduated from the school and they're out in the real world, and the enclaves are these places that wizards have built that are like space savers, where they're also safe from monsters that are in the void, that are, but just like kind of like the doorways are attached to reality, and they're built out into the void. And through the story, you find out that they're built on like this horrible ritual that involves like turning a person in. This is all spoilery. Sorry, guys. Turning a person into a monster, and then sending them out to be tortured and to torture other people, like as a monster, right? And so the only way to fix it is to kill a monster which tears down the enclave. This is like way spoilery, guys. I'm really sorry. I should have said spoilers. The I feel like the wish fulfillment here is an ideological. The tradition is so obviously evil that it deserves to be torn down. It's like if in the real world, right, we could prove without a doubt that the establishments that we have, the traditions we have, like say the church or whatever, were unequivocally, you couldn't argue that they weren't evil, and then everyone would help tear them down if they just realized, right? I feel like that's a little bit of ideological wish fulfillment that is coming out of this book. The wonder, I think, is the strongest point of this story, just because even though we've had 2 books already, we still have these just gorgeous and like really intriguing settings and magical locations and like how does stuff work. So I think that aspect is really strong here. I think the adventure is where this story really fails. It just completely falls apart. Because of the way the second book ended, right? Darkest Before the Dawn type stuff. The first part of the book is the main character moping about because her boyfriend's because she had to leave him behind and he's probably dead. She doesn't want to believe he's dead. She wants to go back and rescue him. So, but she spends a great deal of the beginning just moping, crying, getting like, I guess like that, like the fallout of having escaped like this school and all of like the monsters that were in it and stuff. The school doesn't enter into this story too much. It's just it was like it was flooded with monsters and there's no adults there, so it was kind of a crapshoot for everybody. There's way more interesting mechanics to that, and the first 2 books were great, loved them. Because we're out in the real world, outside of school, I should say. There was a lot less push and drive and things happening. School makes things happen, right? You learn stuff and then you are doing things with your friends, and then you have like specific events, and it's all tied together in time passing. This didn't have that kind of push through, because it was unplugged from that. And so the first part where she's mopey was frustrating. And then she didn't really have a good single motivation that pulled through. In the school, the first 2 books, they're trying to get out of the school, graduate, and escape without getting eaten by monsters, right? Like that's a pretty clear singular goal that everything sort of hung off of. And now there wasn't that. So that was frustrating, a little less tightly planned out, I think. And then every new thing that you learned just made things more depressing. She figured out how to go back, rescued her boyfriend. Turns out he's a monster. This guy that the first 2 books built up as someone who was really heroic, who who fought monsters even though there wasn't anything in it for him, who um, was sort of the light to her dark, right? Um, he was like noble and and good, and she was like this girl who was struggling not to become a dark sorcerer, right? And and then that dichotomy just completely fell apart in this book because, oh surprise, there aren't real heroes, right? Like he's just um he's also dark. And so after they rescued him, um because he had learned that he was a monster, he spent the rest of the book moping about and not being attractive, and that was frustrating, right? Like nobody it was like nobody had something that they were going for, right? um and then as you learned more about the enclaves and how they worked, like it was like, okay, instead of all of these potential things to be learned in school where every new thing would be interesting and have something to do with solving problems and like mysteries and stuff, it was like each one was just more horrible. And so secrets weren't fun anymore. Discovering them wasn't fun anymore. And then thematically, it the story made the point that ordinary people just want to live their lives, and they're okay if that means that somewhere something horrible is happening to other people's children, right? And that just that's a really depressing worldview, and it's not one that I hold. I don't believe that of people. And so that was um frustrating for me from this story. um so I've got into this a little bit already, but these stories really seem to be pushing a lot of ideology over entertainment, um, which tended to villainize me as a person. Um, and I disliked that. But they also seemed like they were doing it maybe a little clumsily. There are some really interesting things that, um, well, it's always interesting when people start trying to get heavy-handed in books, in stories. I mean, um, it just because themes are so they touch so much of a story, everything has to be really tight in order for a clear ideology to come through. And if you start being heavy-handed, you have to be careful that everything is that tight. And that's just not how mainstream media does things. Wednesday talked a little bit about this. Prejudice is bad, and the outcasts are justified in enacting retribution. So this goes to that worldview where if someone has hurt a group of people, insulted a group of people, it's okay for that group of people to then be mean back, and not just mean back, but do something way, way bigger, right? And part of this was Wednesday really didn't want the school to work with the local town. She thought that was betraying the true history, um, and so she took matters into her own hands and made a mess of things. I really sympathized a lot with her headmistress. I don't know. I didn't go to boarding school. All I know is like story boarding schools. I sympathized with the adults in the situation is what it came down to. I just Sam Goyer points out, retribution in modern stories is blown out of proportion. Yeah. But if we look at our world, the real world, that's what people seem to want. When they are the ones who they feel have been victimized, right? They want to be able to cut you out of society, or demand like monetary payments of some sort. It's so that is where this felt like it was trying to push that. At the same time, because of the way that Wednesday was characterized, it almost seemed like they were saying that that was part of her arc, like she needed to let go of that and do to be more charitable towards people, and less vindictive and determined not to care. So it got a little wishy-washy, when it came to whether or not she was really doing the right thing. And so I can hope that they were meaning to do that, but I kind of doubt it. The other part of Wednesday, they tried really hard to make, there was like one episode that was just really hard to stomach. It was so pushy, where they tried to link like werewolf stuff with some of the rhetoric around gender and like being yourself. But it was like one episode, and then the story moved on and went back to like good monster horror type stuff. So, but it was there. The Golden Enclaves, this was really interesting to me, because the way that the magic system works is very much about like what you mean to do, what your intentions are. And because of the main character's like focus, her academic focus on language, it tended to be telling the world what you wanted it to do, and then it did it. There was a lot more like complexity to it, and in the first two books, it was great. I liked it a lot. In this one, it started to feel like Harry Potter screaming "Expecto Patronum," right? It's like, oh, it's gonna work better when you just say it with more conviction. So I got a little bit tired of that. But the way that the magic works after you have your intention and you've said the words that what in whatever language in order to make what you want happen, it has to be believed. And if it's not believed enough, then it starts to fall apart, right? Like, so they build these big cities in the void, and if people start thinking too much about how they are actually in the void and they're not actually in a city, then the whole place will just break off into the void, and reality will reassert itself. So that's fine, but it seemed to me, because of my perspective, that the author was doing a very, very similar thing with her ideology, particularly the sexuality aspect. The first two books, you have a girl, you have her friends, and then you have this boy that she is romantically interested in. It's all very straightforward. There's not anything to indicate whatsoever that the main character is interested in other boys or that she's interested in girls. While her boyfriend is stuck in the school and her goal is to get him out. She has a lesbian it's not like a one night stand because it's not once, and it's also not like with a stranger, right? Like it's like with one of her like acquaintances from school who then turns into a friend. Yeah, that's believable. So, but it came out of left field. There was nothing to indicate that there was anything in her character that was gay. Right up until the actual scene, there was nothing to indicate that she was attracted to this other person. And I found that really uncomfortable. But it seemed like the author was trying to speak into reality. This is normal. And there's nothing that I have to do to make it feel real. Like it is normal, not just as like a sexuality, but it's normal that two people would do this in this situation, that a girl who had a steady boyfriend or a boyfriend with an understanding that they were going to share their lives together once they got out of school and who wanted to rescue him would then have this kind of dalliance, that she would then, after later in the book, repeat that, and that at no point in the book should she have to discuss it with him. It boggled my mind. I was really confused by the whole, like, what was she trying to say other than this kind of thing should be normal? The thematic conclusions are: there's no such thing as true love. There is no such thing as faithfulness, that there shouldn't have to be faithfulness, that there's no such thing as being healthy in your own, like in your own like chastity, because the act of sex with this woman was supposed to be some sort of like therapeutic act. I was really confused, and maybe it's just because I've been so unplugged from traditional media that I was not expecting it. And then another ideology that I thought was interesting was maybe a little bit of an anti-wealth aspect, because the new enclaves, the better enclaves that are going to be built, are by necessity smaller. It almost felt like maybe it was like anti-city. But it was but then it was like, because the enclaves that they had built, that were built on like these horrors, were so beautiful and had so much like not necessary things like gardens and like beautiful architecture, right? It felt more like it was saying something about like taking more than your fair share, like anti-building something that has like an aspect of beauty and wealth, I guess. Just gonna catch up real quick on some of the comments. You guys are talking about Tolkien. Patrick says magic school literature cannot escape a world where we should still homeschool our children. Valid. So thank you guys for listening to my just complain about being burned again by traditional media. I am going to talk a little bit about some indie alternatives for you guys, because what I don't want to do is just be complaining that I watched something or read something all the way through its conclusion, and some of it was hate watching / reading, and some of it was actual, like, you know, with Wednesday, I thought that the monster horror was great and the actual plot was interesting. So that's not my goal. My goal is to promote indies by taking like traditional or more readily accessible media and sort of pointing towards where you can support creatives who are doing things differently. Unexpected Enlightenment of Rachel Griffin. This is just a fantastic little, well, it's the first one in the series. I'm fairly certain I'm not going to be stabbed in the back by this one. One element of this one that I think is contrasts starkly with the others that we have talked about are the variety of characters that are just clearly thought out. In Golden Enclaves, it was like the main character had several friends, and I hadn't read the first two again before I read the third one. And so I had like completely forgotten who all of her girlfriends were. Girlfriends in the friendship term. And in this one, it didn't matter. It was like they were interchangeable. So it's nice to have a story about a group of characters who are all very distinct in interesting ways. And I have a full review of this one on my website. So I'm not going to talk a super lot about like the magic school aspects of this, except to say that really great book, and the thematic implications are a lot more hopeful than either Wednesday or the Golden Enclaves. And then Drosselmeyer, Curse of the Rat King. The Drosselmeyer, it's the Nutcracker trilogy. They all start with Drosselmeyer. So I sometimes I call them the Drosselmeyer trilogy, but it's the Nutcracker trilogy. The first one is magic school, and then the second two move into a slightly different genre. Again, full review on the website. And this one, if you're looking for something maybe a little bit darker, a little bit more intense, this is the one that I would reach for you, because of that element of gory retribution, which, talking about retribution in a slightly different way, because with Wednesday, sort of like we said It's blown way out of proportion. In Curse of the Rat King, it's set up very deliberately to be exactly the correct response. It's just maybe over the top for what you would generally find in a book. It's that it hits you with that shock value, is what I mean to say. Because of the horror comedy, paranormal horror comedy that Wednesday tried to reach for, I bring up The Mummy of Monte Cristo because undead adaptation, fantastic, and there's a lot of humor, I feel like, especially in identifying those classic horror elements that are combined with the classic novel. The Crimson Spark, another sort of dark fantasy centered around youthful characters. That's why I bring up this one. In Darkness Cast, I bring up this one because of the two main characters, sort of like the Golden Enclaves had the heroic boy and the dark girl dichotomy. This one has the heroic knight and a dark sorcerer. They're not a romantic couple. So there has that same back and forth play where there's a push and pull and a working together on a problem from two very, very different angles. Brand of the Warlock, again, bring this one up a little bit darker, a little more intense, but also funny. Maybe funny's not the right word. Witty, I think I would say that. And then I'm going to bring up a couple of female main characters, youthful female main characters. I like Kalina Radcliffe's Mouse. Dystopian fantasy, more fantasy than dystopia, if that makes sense. And then Morgan Newquist's Hellgate. This one is like a paranormal romance. So there's some of the romantic elements there. I have a tag that's actually female lead, if that's something that you look for in a book. So if you go to either of these reviews and scroll down to the tags, I used to have it all set up, but I got to get fixed where it was on the side, but I will figure that out when I have time. And then I want to remind you guys about the story bundle. The Rachel Griffin book is in this. And then Morgan Newquist wrote Dragonhole. So, and then N.R. LaPointe's short story is in there, like I said earlier. So this is really timely. I'm pretty pleased about that. I definitely want to promote another fun and well, it's a really unique way to get a hold of indie books. So check it out. The link is storybundle.com/magic. And then please, as always, help support indies. Try indie alternatives because you're going to tend to find authors that are focused on entertainment and less on pushing ideology, and who are doing interesting things, things that aren't necessarily like the kind of things that you would find in a mainstream story. They don't have editors peering over their shoulder saying, well, that's not publishable. They're doing what they think is fun. And I think that comes through. One thing that you can do to help, other than buying and reading, is leaving reviews. And even if that's just, I liked it, I hated it, great. That's going to help other readers find what they like. So I'm not an author. Authors push leave reviews all the time, because they want to get up in the algorithm or whatever. And I think, right, so your review is going to help them in that way. My focus is more for helping readers, because if you come on Amazon or Goodreads or wherever you find your books and something has one review, that review is helpful, but you just don't know, does this person share my views, and is it an accurate reflection of what I will think of it? If there are more reviews, there's more assurance. Like, if I buy this, it's gonna do what the blurb sets out to say, right? Like, I'm going to enjoy this entertainment. And then just, comment under this video if you have a movie, TV show, book from mainstream that you would like me to think about indie alternatives for. And I would be really curious. I didn't have anything that I've reviewed, strangely enough, that was like, Wednesday Addams has like pilgrims, like pilgrim witch dichotomy horror. I didn't have any examples of indie alternatives to that, although I'm pretty sure that any examples would take quite a different tact in casting protagonist, antagonist. But I would be interested if you guys know of any. And of course, other Magic School examples from the indie realm. I would love to hear what you guys come up with, and what you guys recommend. Patrick, as always, is throwing me a softball. Could one leave a review at some sort of review website for indie books, maybe that do long form positive reviews only? Yes. Periapsispress.com is my website. Links are in the description. And I do positive only reviews, and I try to break it down for you in a long, they're not super long, but they're very densely detailed. And I would appreciate if you have read any of the books that I've reviewed, if you would leave a comment saying that you liked the book or what you thought of it. Leave your own mini review, because I hope that Periapsis Press can become a place where people can find indies and browse to see what people recommend. So thank you guys so much for showing up and for tuning in. Like, subscribe, whatever. I really appreciate you guys so much. Guys, have a great night.